Recording.
Okay. So welcome everybody to our Science of Mind Zoom group meeting. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. And it's good to see everybody. And we're here for each other to share and help each other and support. If anybody needs support, they can call me or anyone else here. And it's going to be a little bit different. Today, Paul's doing the message and the meditation, and the meditation is going to be after the message. So that's going to be a little bit different. And Jane is going to sing for us. So we're going to start with Jane.
Well, actually, this time, Kathy, we have recorded music for all of the songs. So Paul's going to play that, and I will sing along. But everyone else is welcome to sing along too.
Okay.
So let's see.
Shall we all unmute ourselves to sing, Paul, or not?
I would say just sing along, but don't unmute yourself because the way Zoom works, it'll sound like the Hogwarts school song.
Yeah. So shall I stay muted as well?
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
We are gathering in song, welcoming the oneness, opening the doors of spirit wide. We are walking into light, starting out together on a journey through the miracles inside. There is abundance in our fellowship. This is a place we all belong. We place our trust in this great holiness. This is the moment, come along. We are
gathering in song, welcoming the oneness. What happened? Opening the doors of spirit wide. We are walking into light, starting out together on a journey to the miracles inside. There is a promise in our thankfulness.
We place our trust in this great holiness. This sacred space is yours and mine. We are gathering in song, welcoming the oneness, opening the doors of spirit wide. We are walking into light, starting out together on a journey through the miracles inside. We are gathering in song, welcoming the oneness, opening the doors of spirit wide. We are walking into light, starting out together on a journey through the miracles inside. On a journey through the miracles inside.
Yes. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Janet. Okay. Let's take a breath in deeply into the loving energy of the divine. And let's exhale any fear or uncertainty. And I know that God is in this place because we are here. I know the presence and the power of the One permeates all space and all time, and the perfection of God is who and what we are. And I know that we are so deeply connected and are one with this One, the living spirit that lives and moves and has its being through all things, through all life and all times, including this particular time that we live in. And we just fall into that space of awareness that love, health, safety, peace, and abundance are present, and that compassion and wisdom are so deeply embodied in each and every cell of our being. And from that place, we just open our hearts and minds to a greater awareness that we are engulfed in this peace, in this faith, knowing we always have more than enough. Our relationships are solid, loving, and supportive. Our families are safe. Our immune systems are strong. And I claim all the leaders of the countries work together in compassion and wisdom for the highest and best of all. I claim our Science of Mind members live and spread peace and truth into the lives of many. And I claim strength, health, wellness to everybody that is touched by this pandemic. Knowing Spirit is in and through everything, I am grateful for technology unfolding easily and quickly, and the virus ended. I am grateful for world leaders working together, learning what is needed for the highest and best for all. And grateful for our principles that guide us and give us strength through uncharted times and bring us peace. And I appreciate all the blessings that we have, seen and unseen. And I'm grateful for our health and our safety and our peace. And I know there's a living law that is working and takes this. It is creative in nature, and as we are created in nature, and brings us everything that we have asked. And I release this back into Spirit, knowing it is already done. And so we say, and so it is. And we have our identity prayer. I know that within myself, there is a life which is perfect, complete, and divine. It was never born, and it cannot die, for it lives and is God. Within myself is wholeness, peace, poise, and the power of life. This life is health, it is abundance, it is love. There is one life, and it is the life of God, and this is my life now, and so it is. And now Paul has a reading from the Science of Mind magazine from Ernest Holmes.
Okay, life intends and wants to give us every good thing, but when the circuit is stopped at any point, it is retarded at every point. Lack of forgiveness keeps us from experiencing our good. It blocks the flow of divine life in many parts of our lives. Where it is blocked in one place, it is blocked in all places. Life becomes stagnant. Therefore, forgiveness is important. It opens us up to live the life we were created to live. Holmes put it this way: our minds are mental pools through which the flow of the thoughts of good, which are thoughts of love and generosity, goodwill and peace, poise and power. You are here to live a life of abundance, joy, and love. Lack of forgiveness keeps that from happening. Wherever there is stagnation in our mental lives, we shall discover that the reason is because we have not permitted this flow. Once again, the responsibility is ours. It's an inside job. It is a job that no one else can do for us. So today our message is about the hardest one to forgive. Today's message is about the saddest story in the Bible. I know we don't usually focus on the Bible stories, but we did just celebrate Easter, and this is an Easter story. I believe the story also holds some of the greatest promise for us as well. It's the story of Judas Iscariot. Just about everyone knows the story of Judas, the scoundrel who betrayed Jesus. I remember a series of portraits in a Methodist church of the 12 disciples, and Judas was portrayed as a shifty, evil-looking guy. That's the picture that I have displayed there, is that particular portrait. Judas is the guy that everyone loves to hate. The name Judas has become synonymous with betrayal and treachery. Calling someone a Judas is a deep insult. Each of the four Gospels introduces Judas as being, quote, the one who betrayed Jesus. But there may be another side to Judas that's worth examining. First, let's look at the story as it's given in the Bible. We can't really get the exact sequence of events because they're presented differently in the four different Gospels. For instance, Matthew and Mark describe Judas' decision to betray Jesus as happening at the moment when Mary had anointed Jesus' feet with the expensive nard. However, in Luke, Judas decides shortly before the Passover meal that we now celebrate as communion. And in John, it happens at the Passover meal. Both Luke and John describe the decision as, quote, Satan entering into Judas. Regardless, at some point, Judas agreed with the priests to betray Jesus in return for 30 silver coins. During the Passover meal, Jesus mentions to the disciples that he will be betrayed, and Judas goes out into the night to the priests. Later that evening, Jesus and the other disciples went to the Mount of Olives, which Matthew calls Gethsemane, where Jesus struggles with the burden of knowing what is to happen. Judas leads the temple guard to the place. Jesus is arrested, and all the disciples scatter as Jesus said they would. Later, when Judas learns that Jesus has been condemned, he tries to return the money to the priests. Finally, he kills himself. Matthew 27:5 says that Judas hung himself. Acts 1:18 says that he fell headlong and spilled his viscera. Graphic picture. Interestingly enough, the priest who had given him the money, probably from the temple treasury, was now unclean and no longer fit for use in the temple. So the priests used the money to buy a field for poor people's graves, and apparently Judas is buried there. Finally, in Acts, the disciples take it upon themselves to appoint a new disciple to take Judas' place, a man called Matthias, except that Jesus himself later picks Saul as the replacement. That's pretty much the story. So now let's go back and look at the story from another point of view. Many of the Jews of Jesus' time were expecting the Messiah to come, a Messiah to come. Not only that, but they expected the Messiah to be a strong, conquering leader who would deliver the Jews from the captivity of the Romans. There was also a group of Jews called Zealots, that's where we get the term zeal, who were somewhat of the radicals of the day. According to one source, sought rebellion against the Romans. One of the disciples, Simon, is described as a zealot. This is the other Simon, not the one that we know as Peter. Although Judas is not labeled a zealot, let's assume for the moment that Judas is of like mind to the zealots. He's been hanging around with Jesus for a few years now, listening and watching. He's seen the miracles. He's heard the wisdom. He is convinced that Jesus is, in fact, the Messiah. Judas believes he's on the right bandwagon. Yeah, he's going to be one of the 12 of the new tribes. He's already taken a position of importance, that of treasurer for the group of disciples. It's an exciting time. But after 3 years, he's probably getting a little impatient for things to start happening. Then one day, Jesus starts talking about his time having come, but along with that, crazy talk about being crucified and such. Mary comes and anoints. This is the challenge of being both the administrator and the speaker. Mary comes and anoints Jesus' feet with nard, which is an expensive perfume used to put on the bodies of loved ones who have died, preparing them for burial. I'm sure the symbolism wasn't lost on the disciples, and they were very indignant. In the book of John, it is Judas himself who objects the loudest. At this point, Judas is probably getting pretty confused. He's convinced that Jesus is the Messiah, but things aren't going exactly the way he had envisioned. Hold her, Newt, she's headed for the ditch. It sure doesn't sound like revolution. So let's suppose that Judas hatches up a plan to make things happen. He's going to force Jesus' hand to make him start the revolution, and the way he knows how to do that is to hand Jesus over to the priests. Jesus will have to come out then, and that's what he does. But things start really going wrong at that point. Instead of coming out and fighting, Jesus chides Peter for attacking the guard, heals the guard, and goes peacefully. He's handed over to the Romans, who torture him and finally crucify him. Jesus dies a horrible death on the cross. Now, instead of being the catalyst for change, Judas has Jesus' blood on his hands. Jesus himself said it would be better if that man had not been born. Judas tries to redeem himself by trying to return the money, but still finds that he can't live with himself, and so he takes his own life. That's a very sad story, but it's not the saddest part, and I'll explain in a minute. There are a number of interesting points I see in this story. The first thing I want to point out is that Jesus had already forgiven Judas for betraying him, even before it happened. Jesus mentioned to his disciples that he would be betrayed, and in some Gospels even points out who it is. Jesus also mentions that this is all to take place according to prophecy. It's part of the plan. It has to happen. He knows what is to happen and why, and knows that the role Judas plays is a crucial one. In John, Jesus tells Judas, "Hurry, do it now." He also sympathizes with Judas. In one translation, he says, "How terrible it will be for my betrayer." Put yourself in Judas' position. Imagine if you had tried to make things better, but in the process had caused your mentor, whom you love dearly, to be executed. Jesus isn't condemning Judas. He's sympathizing with him, referring to the horror and anguish that Judas must have felt. So what's in this for us to take home? First of all, it seems to me that Judas' real mistake is what I call making God in man's image, that of trying to decide for God what God should do or be. We all do that from time to time. Have you ever tried to bargain with God? Even the other disciples tried to appoint Matthias as Judas' replacement. But it's Paul who Jesus ultimately chooses to be the 12th apostle, not Matthias, who's promptly forgotten. He's not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible except where they chose him to be the 12th and then they forget about him. As students of the science of mind, we know to ask for what we want, but we also know to disconnect from the how. By seeing where we're a little bit like Judas, we can learn to avoid those mistakes and thereby deepen our own spiritual understanding. Secondly, I wanted to point out that even as horrible and evil as things might seem, God can still use it for the greater good. You've probably heard me say, all things are blessings. Judas made a really terrible mistake, but God used it for something that we now understand as wonderful, much greater than what Judas probably had in mind. Finally, and most importantly, I want to remember that Jesus forgave Judas. He knew what Judas was going to do, even urged him to do it. This is also the saddest part of the story. If Judas had only understood that he was forgiven, he might not have hung himself, and his place in Christian history might be quite different. If he'd only waited another day or two, but the burden was too great. The big challenge is that Judas couldn't forgive himself. Granted that he was probably pretty shocked and horrified about the results of what he's done, and really, aren't we ourselves the hardest to forgive? If I do something I regret, who remembers that and feels the worst about it for years to come? Why is that? I think it's because we place the highest standards on ourselves, standards of perfection that we cannot meet. But the fact is that we already are perfect in God's eyes. It's the worldly standards that count us as imperfect. When God created man, does it say God said, "Here's mankind, the dirty, rotten scoundrels"? No. It says God created mankind in his own image, and he blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful." It also says God saw that all God had made, and it was very good. It's all good. How different would our own lives be if we could remember in every moment that we live in the love of God, love that is greater than any foolish mistake we might make. Remember, all things are blessings. There are no mistakes. So we're going to do the meditation now. This is a healing meditation that I recorded. This is the Seashore Self-Healing Meditation. As we go into the period of meditation, I invite you to close your eyes and go on a journey with me in your mind. We'll start by relaxing. As you do the relaxation, breathe. Now release the breath. Take another deep breath. And release. Breathe in. Breathe out. Tense the muscles of your toes and release. Feel the tension released in your toes. Now your feet. Tense them briefly and let it go. Now your lower legs. Point your toes down like standing on tiptoes, and then on your heels. Now relax. Tense your thighs, and now relax. Tense around your hips and pelvic area, and now relax. Make your stomach hard, and now relax. Make fists with your hands, and now relax. Tense your upper arms, your biceps and triceps, and relax. Tense your neck muscles, and relax. Tense all the muscles in your face. Feel the emotions that brings, and relax. Now we're just going to breathe. Breathe in and hold it for a second, and release. Breathe and release. Breathe in and release. Now imagine that it is the pre-dawn hours in the dunes near a beach. Build that image in your mind. It's twilight, but you can see the promise of the dawn yet to come. You struggle a bit, walking in the shifting sands, as you walk over the top of the last dune before reaching the beach. You can feel the trade winds blowing gently in your face as you walk toward the beach. You are filled with the smells of the salty ocean air and the fresh green seaweed. In the vision of the indigo sea, with flecks of whitecap and foam here and there, and a few sparkles of phosphorescence in the crashing waves. The sand is soft and comfortable under your feet. You can hear the sounds of the ocean, the gentle splashing and the ebb and flow of the waves as they roll in and then retreat back into the sea. The beach has driftwood here and there, and yet your pathway is clear and easy as we continue moving toward the sea. As you walk, the sand becomes more firm, and the walk becomes easier. The beach surface becomes more smooth, with a gentle slope down to the sea. The sand and the breeze around you is cool and comfortable, caressing you lovingly. The smell of the sea becomes stronger and more invigorating. You walk down to the beach where the waves of water come and go, and sit down in the sand. As you sit on the beach, feel the gentle water rush up past the beach and then back again into the sea. Rush up past the beach and back again into the sea. The sky continues to brighten with the promise of the coming sunrise. As the light increases, you see the waters rush around you, rushing up and draining away. You notice that with each wave, the hurts and challenges that you've experienced are leaching away like ink into the water as it ebbs and flows around you. The water flows around you. The pains leach out like stains into the water, and the water carries it away again, back into the sea, only to be replaced with clear, clean water. Each successive wave drains away more of your sorrows and washes them away into the sea. All the hurts, the upsets, the disappointments, all are forgiven. You begin to feel gratitude for the blessings brought by each of the events that brought the pain, whether emotional or physical. As the sky becomes brighter, the stains become more and more faint until you can hardly notice. All the hurts have drained away. You feel relaxed and comfortable, at peace. The sun begins to peek over the horizon, out to sea. The beautiful rays of sunlight begin to fill the sky. As the sun comes up over the horizon, you begin to feel the warmth and the energy of the sun pouring into your skin. You feel love and acceptance pouring into you like the energy of the sun, energy that heals and rejuvenates you and fills you to the brim with love and compassion for yourself and for those around you. You feel at peace. You can sense that you are cradled in loving arms as you begin to return to the present, the here and now. You continue to carry this sense of peace and health with you in the coming moments and hours and days ahead. You are relaxed. You are at peace. You are forgiven, and you forgive yourself. You are one. Open your eyes now and meet the new day. Our song after the meditation is I Forgive You by Karen Taylor Good, sung by Karen Taylor Good.
That's right. Everyone can sing along as they catch it.
I'm working on forgiveness, working really hard, 'cause I've noticed how it lightens up my spirit and my heart. But there's still one soul who I beat up on, shame and blame and heap the crud on. What a painful price that little soul has paid. So face to face and heart to heart, I think it's time to say, I forgive you. You've done the best you could. I forgive you. I release you from the shoulds. I accept you as that perfect child of God you're meant to be. I forgive you. Wonder why it's easier forgiving someone else. Mothers, fathers, children, anybody but myself. Can I learn to love myself completely? The good, the bad, the cool, the geeky, though the pieces won't be falling into place, till I can look with love on this face. I forgive you. You've done the best you could. I forgive you. I release you from the shoulds. I accept you as that perfect child of God you're meant to be. I forgive you. Forgive you. You've done the best you could. I forgive you. I release you from the shoulds. forgive you. Me.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jane. That was a beautiful song.
Everybody be sure to unmute yourself if you want to speak.
But then
Very
everybody's like,
appropriate.
"You need my nightgown."
No, they can't see it. It's up here.
Yes, dear. Thank you, Paul. That was a really good message for all of us. And I liked what you said about putting God in a human image. So that kind of helps.
I think everybody's always doing the best they can, regardless of what troubling. But then we look back days, weeks, or even years later, all that life experience, and then judge ourselves from a new vantage point. I mean, look at something 5 years later, and you've learned a lot of lessons in that time, and then you go back beating yourself up about something you did 5 years ago, thinking that you would have made the same choice with all this extra wisdom that you gained, and it's just not the case.
No.
You gotta trust that you did the best you could at that time in your life with everything you knew, because we always do. Then we want to beat ourselves up for work out what we believe they should have worked out.
I think the best we can do is take that particular situation that came up and decide, well, if this comes up again, this is the way I'm going to handle it next time. And I've had that happen before. The same type of situation came up, and so I'd already made that decision of how I was going to handle it, and so that's what I did.
I think it's important too to make a distinction between yourself and your action. Just separate that so you're not saying to yourself, I'm a bad person. The thing I did wasn't the greatest, but I'm still a good person. So that's a big distinction too. It doesn't make me this horrible person, this thing I did that I'm sorry for. Yeah.
It's a distinction for parents too. I've heard parents discipline their child. You're bad. Look what you did. And I've heard people just like, no, you're good, but what you did, like you said, Kathy, wasn't the best choice. And so then you get them, you teach them to learn that, okay, that wasn't a good choice. Don't beat yourself up. Let's think about how we can handle this the next time, like Ann was saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's such a thing as considering that when we do things that the results don't turn out the way we wanted, it's not so much a question of that you made a mistake, but that the results were not what you wanted. Maybe the results were not something that you enjoyed. And see that as being, okay, well, I'm not enjoying this much in the moment, but there's a blessing in it. And I don't know what that blessing is at the moment, but I know it's there. So even some of the things that we've considered to be really horrible things have resulted in some good. A really big example that I have is the Holocaust. You know, the Holocaust was pretty bad. I mean, bad from the point of view that we really didn't like what happened. But the fact of the matter is that the entire world knows about that event and knows what is possible to happen if we're not careful that we choose to do other things. Mankind as a whole has evolved as a result of that event, and mankind as a whole is better and more evolved, to repeat the same observation. Mankind is better as a result of doing that. And if you look at it from the viewpoint that I do, which is that, the mortal life is this infinitely small segment out of an infinitely long lifetime, then, the not to reduce the importance of what happened, but in any individual life, that was just a very small segment of their total life, of their eternal life.
So if we look at things as being in divine order, and everyone is doing the best they can with the information they have in the moment, to try to put us in the now, to try to keep us in the present, where I don't think there's any judgment in the present. I'm not even sure there's any thinking in the present. That if it's all in divine order, your only challenge or opportunity is to stay in that now moment, because then you, I would think, tend to go with the flow. You tend to act, or things tend to unfold. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. This is Mark. Yeah, I was thinking, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Okay, good. I was thinking, so there's infinite possibilities in life. So at every moment, we're manifesting or choosing that path, and so yeah, sure. There's maybe some, you could always look back and say, could have, should have, but where we're at now is, there's blessings. This is a unique path that we're on. So that's kind of, I tend to be a more positive guy. So I kind of, look at those blessings and, where I'm at right now. So that's my input.
I think the key is you tend to be a positive God.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But I know things that we've done in the past, with me anyway, they still keep coming up, and I still have to deal with it. I mean, you think you got over it, and then something will trigger it, and then it'll bring something back up that you regret doing, And I think there's, in respect to forgiving yourself, there's some barriers. You have to go through these steps of guilt and shame and regret. I mean, that all works into the whole process of self-forgiving.
Let me provide a couple definitions. One of them is that forgiving is the process of releasing negative emotion related to an event. So there's an event, you didn't like what happened in the event, and you have negative emotion. It may be some grieving. It may be just that things didn't turn out the way you wanted. But there's an event that has negative emotion, and forgiving is simply the letting go of that negative emotion. And especially when it comes to self-forgiveness, when that comes up, because it's kind of deep-seated, you may have gone through the process of letting go of the negative emotion, but when it comes up again, you just have to remember, hey, I've already forgiven myself for this. I forgive you again.
Yeah.
And let it go again. And what happens is, as you do that, as you know, when the thought comes up and you say, I've forgiven you for that, and just let it go again, you know, eventually that forgiving muscle gets pretty strong and it gets easier over time.
Yeah, then you get to move on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
The problem is not the problem. The problem is how you look at the problem.
Yeah.
So I came to Earth to experience what I don't want, so I would then turn to what I do want, and I expand, and the whole universe expands.
And that's all good.
I get the. So I notice as I experience uncomfortable feelings from an incident that, oh, here I am. I'm experiencing these uncomfortable feelings, and I reach for what I'd rather feel. And it's like what Paul was saying about we're building new neural pathways, and we can play with, well, how long do I have to read the whole thing in the past I didn't like before I can turn to what I prefer, what my strengths are, the momentum of being this person unfolding that I'm building, or you could use the words, if you start to have a visceral feeling of so-called who I really am, can I switch to that and just practice the new neural pathways toward the way I love to feel when I really am valuing myself and remembering that that's all I want to focus on. That's where I want to put my main focus. And we can trust that in doing that, we're learning what we want to be learning. And then it'll happen again, because the process of building new neural pathways takes a lot of repetition. And it's not everybody. And there we are again, and we reach again. And like Paul is using the words, building that muscle. There we are, building that muscle. And look at, I'm getting better at that. And I'm so pleased that I'm getting better at it. The amount of time maybe was shorter. Maybe it was an easier process, etc. So although you can apply that to more than just so-called forgiveness, you can keep your mind more and more on who I know I am, who I am developing more and more my connection to Source.
So when
things don't
Jesus
work out,
was asked how often we should forgive somebody, and so this would be including ourselves, he said 70 times 7. So so that would tell us that we should be patient and allow those neural pathways and those muscles to build. You know, the really sad thing about when we don't forgive ourselves is that it paralyzes us.
Yes.
And little kids don't, you know, when a baby's learning how to walk, it doesn't, you know, when it falls down, it doesn't, you know, sit there and go, well, you know, well, I'm just terrible at walking and I'm just never going to do it again. It just gets right back up and goes at it again and never considers it, you know. And so we do that with ourselves, though, that we say, well, I'm just a bad person, and number 2 things can happen is either we don't try again because we're afraid of failing again, doing a bad thing because we don't deserve, because we're a bad person, you know. So
yeah.
So it's like what Kathy says, make sure that we separate our identity of ourselves from the activity, and we be gentle with ourselves and forgive ourselves 70 times 7 every time it comes up again, and it gets lighter and lighter. And as Tom said, we move on to the next thing, the new experiences. Keep growing.
Yeah, to learn from it. When things don't work out the way you want, it's doubt. And that triggers disbelief. can't explain away why things work. It's because you want things to be other than what they are. Because you can't work and square everything the way you want it to. And the stress comes from wanting things to be other than what they are. And if it comes up again, well, what did I do last time? Well, let's do something different this time, because the same mentality that got you into that problem is not going to be the same mentality that got you out of it.
Right.
And if you think, oh, I'm going to try this, no, that's way too extreme. Well, what you think is extreme may be the most mildest thing to everybody around. It just does your boundaries, helping you, telling you, oh, no, wait, in an art class, like somebody was like, try this. Oh, no, that's the way you said. And he said, no, just make it the silliest, most ridiculous thing you possibly can. And then they brought the painting back in class, and it was like, oh, that's a nice, it seemed like a really minor change. But to the person, it was, oh my God, I'm going crazy here. It was butting up against the boundaries of what they thought should or shouldn't be.
I'm going to jump in on that, because what helped me is to think of the situation from another point of view totally.
Yeah.
That's like you were saying. And that really helped me a lot.
Change your perspective. Jane, that reference to the 7 times 70 is from Peter asked Jesus, how many times must I forgive my brother? And the 7 times 70 does not mean 490 times. It means in modern vernacular, whatever it takes.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you see numbers in biblical references, you have to understand what the numbers often don't mean what the number adds up to. It means something else.
Yeah.
Symbolic.
And that's, in that case, the kind of rough translation is whatever it takes. How many times? Whatever it takes.
As often as it comes up.
Right.
Yeah, the numbers have a metaphysical meaning. Like, I think 7 is completion.
Yes.
I've got each number has a specific meaning. Like you were saying, Paul, it's not a mathematical thing. It's a metaphysical thing that's understand all throughout the Bible and other religious texts.
Well, I'm glad y'all explained that, because I kept losing count.
You don't worry about the actual number of times. That's not really what it means. It's like
495, 496.
So Tom, you don't want to get a pedometer, only equivalent to a pedometer that keeps track of all the increments.
You go crazy. It's like it's our natural tendency to trust and believe in people, because what's the alternative? Paranoid and full of fear and not live life. So if things don't work out, they're doing the best that they can as well.
Yeah.
So an understanding is needed, a deeper understanding. Sorry, go ahead.
What'd you say, Ann?
Remember that when you're out driving on the road, they're doing that.
Yeah.
They may be racing to the hospital to have a baby.
Never know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Hey, tell your story, Ann.
Yeah, when I was a teenager in high school, and we lived in a neighborhood where people would race through the neighborhood sometimes. I'd get really mad because I had cats that got ran over. And so I'd yell at the cars when they drove by like that. And one Sunday afternoon, I was outside, and there was a car that just went racing down the road, and I was yelling at it. And on Monday morning, I found out that one of my classmates, in fact, they lived down the street, had been in a bad car accident, and their parents were told, if you want to see your daughter alive, you better get here fast. And so after that, I said, I don't know what's going on with these people. It might have been them that were racing on the road to get to the hospital. And so after that, I make allowances for people all the time. Paul can tell you that.
And sometimes it's legitimate and sometimes it isn't, but you don't know. And the big takeaway for me in that is, if you don't know, when somebody races by or does something untoward on the road, you don't know what's going on with them. The only thing that you might know is a story that you made up about them. And if you're going to make up a story about them, why not make up a good story? You know, why not make up one that casts them in a better light rather than cast them in the light of being a scoundrel?
It's also judgmental too.
Yeah, it's
which is a burden on us. Yeah.
And
Judging.
judgment is always a choice. It's like boredom. Boredom is always a choice. Judgment is always a choice. You choose whether you're going to judge it in a positive light or a negative light. You choose.
Mm-hmm.
Rising above the illusion of asymmetric insight. You know somebody else based on this really inconsequential, these fleeting moments, and then we suddenly some people try and tell themselves, oh, well, this person's like that. This person's like, well, no, you don't know next to nothing. You're literally creating some story and then trying to hang it around this person's and pat yourself on the back for being perceptive. It's just completely delusional.
Oh well, sometimes it's fun to be delusional.
Only when it makes people laugh.
Okay, any more thoughts on forgiveness, self-forgiveness? Okay, a few things. First of all, Paul fixed our donation button on our website if anybody would like to do that. And if you didn't get a chance to see the Easter service out in Seattle, I'm sorry, I totally forgot about the time zone. But it was a really phenomenal service. And it's on their websites. So you could go on CSL Asheville, Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. Rather not Asheville, Seattle, and you could see the last service they did. It really was a very good service. And again, a reminder that if anybody has time and would like to take some classes from Asheville, that's cslasheville.org. And they have all free classes there that'll keep you busy. Some of them are 6 weeks, 8-week courses, and you could go on to each week in order if you would like. And we were going to send out a survey to see if everybody would be interested to doing this weekly. I'm not sure if you would be interested in that, or I could find a service and just post that. We have a couple of options. So I just want to know what you are thinking and feeling. So Paul might send out a survey just to let us know, because I could do this weekly if everybody was interested. Any comments?
Yeah, I'm starting to feel some sort of isolation. It's nice to see some familiar faces, and even if they are tiny little postage stamp faces.
Yeah, you're going to work, so at least you get out too, right?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. So
I've got a question.
Uh-huh.
So what happens, I mean, you could go weekly, and then what happens when we start opening up to going back? I mean, because you could actually you could have chairs spaced out and stuff when eventually things begin to open up.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure that one out.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Right now, I want to figure out next week.
Yeah. Cross that bridge when we get there.
Anybody have any ideas when it might be opening up again?
Not really.
Frankly, I think things are going to be opening up again pretty soon.
I think so.
Like certainly before the end of May, probably more like at the beginning of May. There's beginning to be a lot of pressure on the politicians to open things back up again.
Well, people have no money, no food, they can't support their families.
It's
It's
just
a
kind
hard,
of all debts and everything for the time being, where nobody has to pay anything.
wouldn't that be nice to keep it like that? But
This is the time to go to a moneyless society. I think it's about time.
Yeah. They're
Well,
talking about $2,000 a month for everybody, but I mean, we want to get back to socializing, but at the same time, we can't reintroduce. We could put ourselves right back into the middle of this if we go back too soon.
right.
We're fortunate because Virginia is so spread out. It's the areas that are really dense population-wise.
Yeah.
New York City
Yeah.
that are really getting hit really hard.
Yeah, well, I think we have to keep our leaders in our prayers because I would not want to be in their situation.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So,
As you know, Trump said this is one of the most difficult decisions
oh yeah,
that he's ever had to make.
right.
Well, he's not going to make it though.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if that rules the country anyway.
Yeah. I mean, each governor has to, anybody in authority has to make these decisions, and they need our prayers and our support. So
Anybody in authority needs to surround themselves with people who are
right.
experts in their field, and that would be the CDC. They've got their ears to the ground. They're the ones that are on the front line trying to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
I heard a story about the workers at UVA cheering the healthcare workers as they went to work, because they are frontline heroes in all this, risking their own health to help other people get through this. My daughter's mother-in-law has been in the emergency
Oh yeah.
room. Her husband doesn't have it because she was an airline student, so they started isolating before this all really came to a head. And yeah, so I mean,
The nursing home workers, they're
there's healthcare workers there as well. I mean, that's a really closed, tight environment.
Yeah. I have two of my friends that run a nursing home in Asheville, and they both have it now.
My goodness.
Went out for our walk.
Okay, so we're going to do, anyone have anything else to add? Okay, we're going to close with a song, and then I'll close with a prayer after the song. And we could stay on a little longer, anybody that wants to.
Socialize.
Yes.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give of my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. Love is my decision.
decision, right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down the road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. My decision, right here and now.
Great song. Love it.
Yeah, I love his words.
Mhm.
He's a wordsmith, to be sure.
Yay.
I think you're muted.
Kathy, your mic's still on.
Thank you. Okay. I know the power and the presence of the one mind, the one divine essence is right here, and it is who we are. And I am grateful for all our open minds and open hearts, the conversation, the ideas that we've shared and learned today, and our expansion into consciousness. And we take what we have learned and apply it to our lives, and our lives keep getting better. And I know our natural state is a state of health and safety and abundance, and we have the ability to create this, no matter what is going on. And we go today in love and safety and health and in peace, and we share these truths with the world, and we live our lives in gratitude, knowing all is well, and God's got our back. And so it is. So again, if anybody needs support, just reach out. We're all here for each other. And thank you very much for joining us. And please answer the survey so I know what I'm doing next week.
Hi.
This here. Hello.
Bye.
For those who either had to pop in and out or join late, I will have the recording of this posted a little later this week.
Good.
Thank you. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Very nice.
Good to see you both.
I don't know if the video's on. Can you see us?
Yes, we can see both of you just
Okay,
fine.
good. Yeah, is there a way that we can see ourselves?